Welcome back to the Dynasty Dummies podcast. I am still Zach Reed, and I am joined by the host with the most, J. Mike. How's it going?
Back at it. Happy to be here with you again, Zach. Lots of life happening since the last time we were able to break down some of these prospects, but here we are again, the 2021 rookie do-si-do hoot nanny continues, and I'm happy to be here with you, brother. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm a little tired. We talked pre-show. My furnace kind of spit the bit this afternoon, so I had to go down and do some emergency burner man repair. But we're back. We're back going again. I think this is going to be like the last weekend that we're sub-freezing here in Maine. But it turned out that it was a bad time to lose your furnace when it was 25. You know.
Yeah, and we got snow here in Cincinnati as well this week. So winter not letting go just yet here in 2021, but on tap this week with our scouting, with our film grades. Again, to clarify, with our film grades, we've got quarterbacks and we've got tight ends. If you're in one QB leagues, this might be your least favorite episode. Sorry, Kyle. If you're in tight end premium or super flex leagues, you may be incredibly excited for what we have in store today. We've got 9 prospects. Yes, count them, 9 prospects that we'll talk through this evening between quarterback and tight end. And as always, before we get into the nuts and bolts of what we've seen on film of these guys, Zach, we've got to get your weekly musing. That's now 2-3 weeks behind now, so there's a lot of musing to be done.
Yeah, I dropped the ball. I had a couple of tests in school here, and I had to study. I had to study, and I had to put down the quarterbacks and pick up the strength of materials. But we're back now, and today is World Autism Day. And if you have listened to this show, then you are aware that my son Caleb, who is 7, is autistic, and my thoughts kind of swirl around that, and then go beyond. But when Caleb was first diagnosed with autism, my wife and I sat down and cried. We did. We didn't know any better. We were mourning kind of the loss of what we had envisioned for Caleb. I mean, as a parent, you do that. You kind of, you have this path that you set up for your kid in your mind, and you know everything is going to be roses and sunshine, and so we cried, and then we stopped and looked at each other and said, "What changed?" Caleb didn't change. Caleb was the same kid he had been the day before the diagnosis, and I realized that it was me that needed to change, and that has stuck with me. And I think that unlearning things is really important. We always talk about learning, we always talk about gaining knowledge, but sometimes you can't gain knowledge before you put down the ideas that you have in your head, your preconceived notions that aren't always right. And I was watching Twitter, as I often do, and JJ Zacharyson, who is at Late Round Quarterback, had a tweet, and the entire tweet was, "Here's a take." And he quote tweeted a gentleman talking about Ezekiel Elliott and how Ezekiel Elliott led the league in rushing 2 years. The Cowboys made the playoffs, and the 3 seasons that he didn't, they missed the playoffs. And he was equating the value of Zeke and his rushing to being more valuable than Dak Prescott. I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The people who come at fantasy football with this preconceived notion of, you know, you got to establish the run, and running wins games, or any number of things kind of in that same vein, without taking into perspective, without taking into account other people's studies, other people's dives into things, and without actually without actually learning. Sometimes you need to unlearn before you get there. And it's not just newbies. It's not just the, everybody else on Twitter. It's analysts. It's us. It's people who look at metrics and say, oh, well, he's an outlier. And yeah, but the thing you have to realize with whether it's film work or whether you have a model that you're running your analytics through, we're all bad at this. And not all outliers are outliers. Not everybody that we look at and see is bad in air quotes is actually bad. They're not always outliers because we're not great at this. We don't have everything dialed in, and we may never have everything dialed in. So it's sometimes you need to step back, you need to unlearn, you need to put down what you have in your head as the right thing or whatever narrative that's running through your mind, and dig a little bit deeper and listen a little bit more to people who know.
Amen to that. Listen, I don't even want to follow that with any of my many musings at this point. That is, yeah, I want to retweet, quote tweet that a billion times over. Well done. Incredibly well done. Well said, Zach. So with that, I don't have any kind of smooth transition into the quarterbacks with that, but let's start there with the quarterbacks and the guy who basically has been QB1 since about 4 years of age. One Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, the 21-year-old, 6'6", 215 pounds, the golden arm, the sunshine locks, similar to that of, remember, the Titans. Trevor Lawrence is the California dreamboat, everything that you could ever hope for and imagine in quarterback. Okay, I'm being silly. I'm being hyperbolic, but the guy is super talented. So, Zach, talk with us in reference to what you have regarding Trevor Lawrence.
I'm not going to come right out and say that he has better hair than me, but it's pretty close.
I think I don't know that you're giving yourself the proper credit, Zach. Come on now.
Should I just wave it around a little bit?
There it is.
Lawrence has been the name in the 2021 quarterback class for 3 years. He's got an absolute rocket for an arm, and sometimes he just seems to flip the ball 30 yards down the field. Although he doesn't always turn your head with wow throws, it's not because Lawrence doesn't make them. It's because he makes them look easy. His skill set, I think, fits within any offense currently in the NFL. Lawrence has the poise and accuracy to pass from the pocket, but he's also versatile enough to eat up defenses with his legs. And he's fast, man, without qualifiers. He's not sneaky fast. Like, we don't have to code anything. He's fast, legitimately fast. And he hauls off long runs, especially up the middle. I don't love him when he gets to the outside. Sometimes he does some dancing. But man, when a defense loses track of him and vacates the middle of the field, he will make you pay.
And Trevor Lawrence, and I guess what the dichotomy with Trevor Lawrence is, we're weighing the hype versus what he's actually done, and he's been really stinking good for 3 years, right? And again, one of these guys that we got to watch mature with every start, with every game, make more and more big throws, and yes, he's surrounded by and has been surrounded by a great amount of high-end talent. T. Higgins, Justin Ross, Travis Etienne, the list goes on and on in terms of quality players that they've had there. He in his own right is an absolute stud. And you can nitpick a lot of things with his game, but just some of the things that I really enjoy about his game, he gets to the top of his drop quick. He's not wasting time with his footwork when it comes to that. When in a clean pocket specifically, you're seeing some incredibly impressive darts that he throws at all levels of the field with all sorts of touch. I am I'm a fan of his, and obviously, while not perfect, someone that you can be incredibly excited about and really thrilled in terms of not wasting your 101 in your rookie drafts when it comes to some of the more lackluster classes of quarterbacks that we've had in the past. That said, Zach, what are some of the things regarding Trevor Lawrence's game that bring you a look, just a tad bit of, oh no, man?
Yeah. While his hair might be perfect, he's not quite. He struggles with touch sometimes. He falls into this rhythm where everything he throws is a fastball, and I think that sometimes you don't have to throw it through a wall. Sometimes you have to throw it to a receiver, or especially sometimes he get caught with ETN where he'd turn and just fire one, and ETN was like, yeah, no, I don't have that. Lawrence also takes big hits on runs, but many of those are because he made a poor decision keeping the ball on an RPO. And that was something I noticed an awful lot as they transitioned. So earlier in his career, they didn't run as much for the RPO. And once, like this past year, especially, there were a lot of options, and he'd get caught keeping the ball, but not having enough space to get anything done and taking some shots. And Lawrence, I think, also rushes his progression sometimes when he's got pressure. So even though he's got a little more time than he thinks he does, he chooses to simply get the ball out early to a covered safety valve rather than hold the ball and deliver it downfield. So, they're little knocks, they're nitpicking, but because Trevor Lawrence has been uber productive for so long, the community has had a long time to analyze and magnify every flaw like I just did. I think, though, when the time finally comes, Lawrence is the 101, whether your rookie draft is hosted on MFL or if it's in Cleveland, Ohio.
There you go. And when it comes to those inconsistencies, you really hope that they can be ironed out schematically with what we think that we'll see. Spread system, a lot of RPO stuff that happened in Clemson, not too far-fetched from what Urban Meyer's been known to do at the collegiate level. We'll see what that looks like and how it pans out at the professional level. But I was with you, man. Can you please get down and slide? Like, will you please stop getting drilled? And sometimes in those RPOs, he's throwing into really tight windows. And a lot of times it feels like you said, even in those, even in the running game, whether he's keeping it or giving it off, the same thing can be said for whether he's going to give it or throw it. And sometimes he makes the really wrong decision and he doesn't give it. He raises up to throw it to that first read, and it's like a slant that's incredibly well covered. And it's like, what are you seeing here to make you think that this was okay? So a lot of those things were probably predetermined. And again, regardless, we're looking at a guy who is likely a top 10 quarterback right now in dynasty leagues, period, in terms of being someone that people are taking the first round of dynasty startups, and his value is likely only going to be rising from here. So get used to that name being near the top there. Next up on our list here, Mr. Justin Fields, 6'3", 227, out of Ohio State. Yes, he started his collegiate career at Georgia. For whatever reason, Kirby Smart thought it prudent to stick with Jake Fromm. Womp womp. And Justin Fields goes on to be an absolute star at Ohio State. We just had some recent testing numbers, and you may have seen this on the Twitter sphere, if you will. Justin Fields running a 4.45, just absolutely blazing. Period. Just for a player, not for a quarterback, but as a player. Period. 6'2", 227. Big boy. How big a boy are you? Real big. Good player, Justin Fields. Super productive, super athletic. Talk to us about Justin Fields.
Well, the trouble with narratives is that they're easy to pick up and retell, whether they're factual or not. And so much of the negativity surrounding Fields has simply been parroted. And to me, most of it is for the birds. I think Justin Fields is a tremendous player in the pocket. When he's pressured, Fields avoids the rush, by sidestepping defenders or moving the pocket completely. He's mobile enough to do that, and he'll reset his throwing platform. When he does throw from over his feet, Fields delivers the ball accurately, on time, to all areas of the field. And I think he has the arm to make deep throws and the timing to hit intermediate crossing routes. And Fields is a fantastic runner, but it's not even necessarily his primary weapon. He runs far more to me like Dak Prescott does than Josh Allen, where like if there's something that he can take that the defense gives him, man, he'll take it in a hurry, but he's not forced it. You don't necessarily have to design every run for Justin Fields.
Yeah, and that's something I feel like many don't give him the credit for, in that we talk a lot about his athleticism. People talk a lot about obviously the receivers that he plays with, and they talk a lot about his processing, which I imagine is something that we might get to here in just a moment. But they don't talk about the accuracy. They don't talk about his ability to run and be an absolutely dangerous playmaker, devastating playmaker with the ball in his hands when he's going down the field. The vision, the strength that he runs with. And a lot of times people want to point out those games against Indiana and Northwestern for many reasons, which obviously he wasn't perfect in those games at all. But the guy shows up when it matters on the big stage time and time again. So with all of that said, what are we looking at in terms of the things that give us pause regarding Justin Fields?
So I think that his prowess as a runner does give Fields a little bit trouble. When he starts to run and doesn't reset himself before throwing, I think Fields tends to drop his arm and his accuracy fails a little bit. He also drops his arm angle on throws to the flat, which tends to they float on him. And I liken this to when you're in, you ever play basketball and you run four corners, you're trying to run out the clock. And the whole idea is to get a guy that runs back behind you. So you're throwing a pass back toward half court instead of toward the sideline, because if the pass gets picked off going horizontal across the court, that is a pick and a layup. It's the same thing with Fields throwing the ball to the flat. When he drops his arm and that ball floats, man, I can see a pick six happening pretty easily there. Fields also, I think, struggles sometimes with locking in on a specific receiver, and that opens him up to some potential trouble from NFL caliber corners. But look, I think all in all, fiction writing may be a lie to tell the truth, but in fantasy football, narrative is what gets you in trouble. It's a detour away from facts. And to me, the fact is Justin Fields is much closer to Trevor Lawrence than he is to any of the rest of the quarterbacks in this class. He's accurate, he's intelligent, he's mobile, and he's the rookie QB2 for your fantasy teams.
Co-signed here. Star potential, plain and simple. His play style, super encouraged by the fact of the fantasy threat that he is. And we had text the other day when you were putting eyes on Fields. You said Dak Prescott was the comment in terms of being able to kind of run in a similar fashion, and that was exactly the name that I had in my write-up too. With how he was able to move. Ideally, it's something that his footwork in terms of his ability to drop in his when he goes back to pass, hopefully that can be sped up, because he's kind of lackadaisical in that in some facets as well. So hopefully that can speed up at the NFL level. And I'm super excited about Justin Fields. And Zach, there's a league, you know it well. Shout out to all of our friends in Olympians. I'm pretty confident we know who the first two players off the board are going to be, and we just talked about them.
It's so amazing to me to see players like Lawrence and Field, as mobile as they are, be able to complete passes near a 70% clip. Like that's incredible to me, regardless of level. But coming out of college, like you're looking at Fields, you're looking at Lawrence, and you're saying these are accurate quarterbacks with mobility. It's exactly what you want for fantasy football.
There you have it. Next up on the list, and again, we're looking at the good folks over at Dynasty League Football, leveraging their rankings currently. They have Zach Wilson as QB3, listed at 6'2", 214 pounds. And after being a starter last in the 2019 season, and not really getting the shine or really doing things to really bring himself the notoriety that has come to be. 2020 was an outstanding year for Zach Wilson. Busts on the scene. He's got games in prime time. He goes down to Coastal Carolina, and even in a loss, puts on a show to be able to help bring that team back. Zach Wilson, and again, pro day of all pro days, someone who is putting the ball in absurd places while doing absurd things. Very nice arm. But talk to us about Zach Wilson out of BYU, Zach.
I know what you're thinking. So many similarities. His name is Zach. My name is Zach. That smile. He took 2 BYU cheerleaders to his senior prom. I ditched my prom and went to a Chinese food buffet. Like, have you ever seen us in the same room? Like, Zach Wilson.
I haven't, but you still have eligibility?
Zach Wilson's draft stock has been steadily rising since he put up nearly 3,700 yards during this past 2020 season. Wilson is an exceptional player on the run. He routinely completes highlight reel throws while actively escaping defenders. And Wilson also possesses le canon, which is French for the canon. And although Wilson doesn't have the easy power of Lawrence and Fields, he still can sling the ball sideline to sideline or 50 yards down the field with a little bit of a run up. And Wilson's release, though, is very quick, whether he's in the pocket or whether he's throwing darts on the move.
I'm over here cackling.
You didn't know I was multilingual, did you?
I wasn't ready. Like, I know. Yeah, you learn something new every day. Very nice arm. And again, in a clean pocket, you're not going to see many quarterbacks better than Zach Wilson. He shows fantastic heights. And you talk about the potential that he has or basically has within him, within the tools that he shows regarding that deep ball and that deep accuracy, the level to which he can become a fantasy star with a quickness. It could be meteoric, and it could be like now. We could look up, and similar to Justin Herbert, if you will, just from a fantasy perspective, from a rookie perspective, how we viewed them going into the year versus how we view them across the landscape of all the quarterbacks could completely change in a matter of a few weeks or even half of a season. Zach Wilson's got that kind of talent. As we move forward, Zach, I know I have some things regarding Zach Wilson. I'll throw them out real quick. Just some things that I'm not thrilled about. Super lackadaisical drop as well when he's going into his pass set. The touch on his passes can wax and wane as well. And while he does exhibit the ability to throw from multiple arm angles, the accuracy does even become a bigger issue when he's under pressure. So it's really cool and really cute on pro days when you're able to spin out and throw dimes and drop the ball whenever you want it. But that was not consistently the case when he was on the move at BYU. He did have a lot of nice plays with that, but he also had some really egregious throws in those same situations. Talk to us, Zach, about the things that maybe hold you back a little bit on Zach. Not Reed, but Wilson.
Although Zach Wilson's style draws comparisons to Mahomes and Favre, gunslinging gets Wilson into trouble. He got away with a lot of bad throws into traffic, usually a couple or 3 a game. And at the next level, corners are not going to drop those easy picks. And so that's one thing I didn't like. Another thing is he's got a surgically repaired labrum, and he's pretty mobile, but he doesn't slide. I mean, this is going to be a recurring theme. Man, he'll put his head down and try to run through a linebacker, and that is not going to fly on the next level. It just won't. And especially for a player who has a history of arm issues, that's something that makes me really nervous. But the biggest knock, aside from swashbuckling into traffic, is that Wilson always seems to be a half beat off from his receivers. The timing just isn't quite there. The ball is there. It's catchable, but it's never quite in stride. And to me, Wilson creates very, very few opportunities for his receivers to create after the catch. The off-platform throws are there. The highlight reel completions from multiple arm angles are there. The swagger is there. The comparisons are there. But trying to push Zach Wilson up into that top tier of this quarterback class, the community seems to be chasing a unicorn. And look, when we have a prospect that closely resembles a unicorn, we often discover that what makes a unicorn is really hard to measure.
Yeah, and overall, we're going to see a very steep incline to his to the level of competition that he's facing, right? So we're looking at the Mountain West and independent teams that they're playing and whatever else. And obviously now he's being thrown into obviously the best of the best in the NFL, and that jumping competition is going to be super steep. So I'm curious, does he get the shot week 1 to play? But even if he does or doesn't, I think that the cocktail is still there for him in terms of the fantasy cocktail dream. The mobility, arm strength, deep accuracy. He is what the hopes of franchises are most certainly built on in the modern NFL. And so his fantasy stardom, I think, is right around the corner. Like we're on the precipice of it. Hopefully he gets the footwork ironed out. He gets the pocket presence, the poise, get some time to be able to have that mature, hopefully with good coaching. But yeah, another very impressive player in this class. Moving on. QB number 4, according to DLF here, Mr. Trey Lance, taking up the mantle there for Carson, the throne that Carson Wentz left, if you will. Trey Lance, 20 years old, 6'3", 224 pounds. And again, you talk about a guy who is very athletic, very big player, 6'3", 224, and someone who put, again, an impressive pro day on display for that people have been talking about for quite a while now. I know Zach and I aren't necessarily super thrilled about taking everything in from pro days. However, it is important to point these things out because it is part of the process. That said, Zach, Trey Lance, North Dakota State, go.
Yeah, look, the NFL cares about pro days, so we have to care about the NFL caring about pro days. As far as Trey Lance, small sample size, lower level of competition, and the COVID year opt-out, he kind of hit the trifecta for a tough evaluation. In his only full year at the helm of the Bison of North Dakota State, Trey Lance was nearly perfect. He completed 67% of his passes, threw for over 2,700 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That's right, none. Lance has a big arm in the same echelon, I think, as Field and Lawrence in terms of raw power. He can get the ball out to the sidelines, and he also has the ability to throw on the move. Lance's mobility is a huge asset. Like, nobody is Lamar Jackson, but Trey Lance's ability as a runner is much closer to that level than anyone else in this class. I mean, he had 1,100 yards rushing as a sophomore. That to me is just a daunting number. And in spite of being a really good runner, Lance has pretty good poise in the pocket as well, often progressing his reads all the way down to a check down receiver.
And stop us if you've heard this before. The mobility is special.
Yes,
yes,
that's why this class is so fun. Like we have 4 guys who can throw the ball and move the pocket and actually create with their legs. This is a great quarterback class.
Chef's kiss, like like just the good stuff there. Big arm accompanied by an absurd amount of deep accuracy. And I love in the class, Zach, and this is obviously super subjective, his deep ball is my favorite to watch out of everyone's. We're talking about a rainbow, and at the end of this rainbow is this pot of gold of the receiver catching just over the shoulder, just beautifully placed passes. I love his ability to be able to have a good ball placement, specifically on those deep balls. He does show good poise in the pocket, specifically under clean pockets, and he doesn't, even when he gets sped up, he's not freaking out back there, which is really cool to see, even at that level of competition. Moving forward, again, we're looking at a guy who did not play at the level of competition that people were excited about, Zach. He also had the one game this season, I think it was Central Arkansas, where the game was less than stellar. We saw Clark Kent. We didn't see the Superman. So Trey Lance, obviously, he doesn't measure up, right, Zach? He doesn't measure up, right? Right.
Well, look, a big problem that's going to plague Trey Lance at the next level is his willingness to initiate contact as a runner. He's often looking to punish defenders with his 6'3", 220-plus pound frame. But that's a dangerous game to be playing with NFL linebackers. And I also think while Lance's accuracy isn't bad, his misses are often to places that could be catastrophic. He overthrows balls high over the middle of the field and underthrows receivers deep when he misses. And so those are a couple of things that I don't love. He also is often a half a step slow to make a decision to run, which part of that stems from something good because he's always keeping his head up. He's always looking to throw. So running is not necessarily his first read, but it also creates this little bit of a hesitation where sometimes he gets caught from behind before he's made his decision to run. And you mentioned that game this year before the opt-out. I think that the defense really kind of changed things up on him, so gave him a bunch of different looks, and that'll be something that will be interesting to see Trey Lance kind of traverse as he transitions to the NFL. I think Lance is, you hate to say a project quarterback, but a little bit just coming from a smaller school and having the success that he had without necessarily the big amount of friction from defenses. He's got a ton of upside for an NFL team. For your fantasy team, I think he is a high floor player because of his rushing ability with a cathedral ceiling if he grows into an NFL passer. With first-round capital, which he's going to get, he's going to be worth taking in your rookie drafts.
No question. And we had the question of competition with Zach Wilson, even steeper climb for Trey Lance, right? And in that game that you referenced against Central Arkansas, he was under siege. Them boys was getting after his behind all game long. And in the year prior, we watched that offensive line for North Dakota State just body defenses left and right. And it was really interesting to see, a little bit of chaos for him, just to be put in that situation. Another QB that we're super excited about in this class, similar to the others in the top of his class. Again, the mobility, the arm strength, the deep accuracy. If you're in need of a quarterback in these super flex leagues, this is it, guys. This is it. You're excited to be here in this position. The jumping competition that I think he provides. I think just like you said, Zach, we probably have more questions about Trey Lance than the other guys. I think there are more questions to be said in reference to can he get to the same ceiling that they have? And I, without question, believe yes, that's the case. I have no doubt about it. And I love the way that you put that. The cathedral ceiling, like it's the new Cardi song. It's up and it's stuck. It is up and it's stuck.
Well, you remember 2 years ago with Josh Allen, where Josh Allen was a good quarterback, was a good fantasy quarterback, wasn't a great NFL quarterback. What was really good for your fantasy team, he was in that top 12 because of his rushing. And then all of a sudden, he learned how to pass, or they opened things up, or whatever clicked last season. And you saw Josh Allen be in that same echelon as Mahomes and Russell Wilson and whoever else you want to put up there. It's that same like potential. And I'm not putting Trey Lance up at the top of the quarterback
Listen, people,
Uh,
listen, people.
but his full upside is that. So he's got the rushing. He's going to have that floor, but because he's a good passer, because I think that he is capable of progressing in the NFL, being kind of brought along. It would be nice to see him land at some place that can develop him. I mean, not everybody develops quarterbacks. Luckily, Gase is gone, so we don't have to worry about that sort of thing. But like, he can progress if he lands someplace that will develop him. There's an awful lot of meat on the bone.
Yes, and just like you said with Josh Allen, I feel like I can't stop talking about Trey Lance. I'm a big fan, but even with Josh Allen, remember just how dismissive overall, not everyone, just how dismissive overall the community was of Josh Allen because they felt like part of it was the accuracy wasn't there and it wasn't going to come for him. And it came. And now, like you said, the tune of is Josh Allen a first round a quarterback that you want to pay or use a first round rookie draft pick on is how drastically different we see him in the landscape of the game. So yeah, this is an intriguing class. I'm excited. Last but not least on our quarterbacks list this evening, one Mr. Mac Jones, the Crimson Tide maestro, 6'3", 217, the heir to the throne of Tua. And he did a pretty dang good job this last season, leading the way and obviously orchestrating the offense to a Heisman winner, an absurd running back in Najee Harris, unlocking him in the passing game, and obviously now becoming someone that people are talking about possibly going as high as number 3 overall in the NFL draft. Can you believe it? Mac Jones, talk to us, Zach.
It's the Sesame Street song. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just isn't the same. You know, this past year, 402 throws, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and the cherry on top, 42 rushing yards. Mac Jones is the poster child for that cliched system quarterback label. And for his part, Jones does all the things a good game manager does. He gets the ball out quickly, he goes through progressions, and he isn't afraid to make the easy, shorter throws to keep the ball moving down the field. Jones is very good in the pocket. He dodges blitzers by strategically stepping up in the pocket to allow his offensive line to re-engage their blocks. Jones makes more deep throws than you might expect based on his unimpressive arm, often anticipating his receiver's ability to work open. But I think Mac Jones's biggest strength is that he consistently delivers the ball in stride to his receivers, giving them a chance for yards after the catch. And that is huge.
And it's one of the things that I don't believe a lot of commentary gives him credit for. They talk about him being a game manager and being surrounded by all these outstanding prospects and players around him. But his ability to navigate the pocket, his ability to get the ball out quickly and give his playmakers the opportunity to be special. Those aren't givens at the quarterback position. Those aren't things that every single quarterback does. And Mac Jones does that exceptionally well. Even though, as previously mentioned, his mobility, while he ran a quicker 40 than people were anticipating at his pro day, he's not exactly fleet of foot, if you will. But Mac Jones, a fantastic player in his own right, a little bit different. And again, he comes with his own set of downside. Talk to us, Zach.
Yeah, Jones is not a Konami code quarterback. His 42 rushing yards don't even qualify him as a Capcom code quarterback. Jones is not able to move the pocket outside of design bootlegs, and his struggles with mobility don't end there. When Jones is forced to throw on the move, his mechanics fail and he pulls the ball down, often missing receivers short. It was that same thing, and you've heard a lot of Brady comps with Jones, and I don't want to do that because they're not the same guy, but that was something that Brady struggled with a lot in his career, was when he was on the move, all of a sudden he's holding the ball a little too long on that throw, ends up driving the ball into the ground, and that's what Mac Jones does. And if Jones doesn't have receivers at the next level who can separate early, I think his lack of arm strength is also going to hurt him. While Jones isn't a bad quarterback by any stretch, in order to be a fantasy asset, he's going to need to land on a team with an already established separation-creating set of wide receivers. He certainly doesn't have the upside that his more mobile counterparts in this class have.
100%. Please don't put him with a basketball team. Please put him, like you just said, please have him in an offense where these people are able to separate quickly and separate at all levels. And it can be really special to watch Mac Jones maximize. No, the ceiling's not the same as everybody else in this class, but perhaps his ability to be able to give you a consistent like 4,000 yard seasons, like it's real. I think it's real with Mac Jones. And I'm not, while he's not offering the on the ground upside as his counterparts, I think that let me put it to you like this, Zach. Let me ask you, when we're looking at the landscape of quarterback, if you're looking at Mac Jones' ceiling, let's say that let's just say he reaches the potential of what you consider him to be. Looking at this current landscape of players, Mac Jones at his ceiling, about what is the range of player that you see him landing under or around?
You mean like the current NFL,
the current NFL, Mac Jones at his ceiling, whatever year that may be, but just currently, where would you plug that ceiling Mac Jones in?
So I think you're going to end up with probably 5 to 7 guys who are mobile, who are going to be at the top, because that's now what we're looking for in fantasy football. It's where the points are generated. After that, I mean, you could see him getting up as high as like QB 8, 9, 10, like that range, pretty consistently. Again, if he lands someplace that has receivers that can create after the catch, because he can get. I know people are not really thrilled about the rumors to San Francisco, but George Kittle is probably the best tight end at creating after the catch. Deebo Samuel creates after the catch. Brandon Ayuk creates after the catch. And whoever you got coming out of that backfield, be it Mostert or be it somebody that they draft, that team would be a perfect fit for Mac Jones as currently constituted, just because he can unlock better than Garoppolo ever could, all of these players who are so dynamic with the ball in their hands.
Very good. Very good. That's the group of quarterbacks. Before we transition into the tight ends, it's not a party here at the Dynasty Dummies without a film grade ranking list, Zach. So talk to us. These top 5 guys that we've talked through, and spoiler alert, we don't have any of the other quarterbacks in our top 5 film grade from these guys. So you're not going to be getting that tonight. But take us through your film grades there for these 5, Zach.
Just exactly the way we talked about them. It's Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields at the top in a clear top tier. Then Zach Wilson, then Trey Lance, and I think they're closer than people would like to admit. And then Mac Jones pulling up the rear. But again, Jones, depending on where he lands, can be very interesting and may end up being a big value to whoever's got the 105 or 106 or 107, wherever he happens to fall in your rookie draft.
Yeah, and I think that we could even see in a lot of rookie drafts him going even later, because people are going to be super excited about Najee, about Jamar, about those skill players. And the latter half of the first round in rookie drafts is going to be a lot of fun to see. I've got similar order. 1 and 2, definitely Lawrence and Fields. And Fields is a lot closer to Lawrence than I feel like many, like you just said, than many will ever care to admit. I think Fields is really close to Lawrence. I think that I've got Lance at 3. I am, again, he may be my favorite out of the group. Not highest graded, but my favorite because I just envision someone who's had this tutelage already and being able to make checks and be able to really run the show at the line of scrimmage, which is way different than what a lot of quarterbacks have to deal with at the college level, even the guys that we have detailed. I'm excited about Lance, but Lance and Wilson are very close. But Lance is my 3, Wilson's my 4, Mac Jones at 5. But I like all of them, and maybe that's not the popular thing to say. Somewhere Peter Howard's upset because I don't say that I hate one of them. But I really love you, Pete. But I'm excited about all these guys.
I'll tell you, I want Mac Jones to land wherever my receivers are, though. Like that's a thing that I want to happen. So, like I got a lot of Darnell Mooney. If he ended up in Chicago, I'd be like, oh, that's okay. Wherever he ends up, I think your receivers are going to benefit. So kind of keep an eye on that anyway, at the very least.
One more question here off the cuff. I just thought of this, Zach. Again, just right now before they even have teams, Tua or Zach Wilson?
Tua.
Okay. Is that pretty clear for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, well, obviously Tua's got a team. I think that they're putting some really significant pieces around him. I'm really excited about the way that front office and the coaching staff has approached this 3-year rebuild. And I was really excited about Tua coming out last year. I don't think he did anything to dissuade me from being high on him. I know everyone thinks he was very disappointing. He wasn't. Like, go look at what he did last year and the situations that he did it in. I understand that he got benched for Fitzpatrick at the end of a game and whatever, but like Tua was fantastic. And I think that maybe the upside of Wilson, maybe because it's the unknown, because you've got that chance to hit a blackjack, that it's alluring. But I also think there's way more chance that you bust out, that you go over 21, and I don't think that there's as much chance of Tua busting at this point. I think he's pretty solid.
Very good. On to the next tight ends, and there is one who stands atop them all. What did the movie trailer? One to rule them all. We've got Kyle Pitts out of Florida, 6'5", 245, and again, you talk about shows being put on for pro days. 33-inch vertical jump, 4.4 speed at 245 pounds and 6'5" is pretty good. He just a really special athlete and talent. Let's talk a little bit about Kyle Pitts. What do you guys say?
Yeah, my initial impression is the man is good. That was my first note under his film. But it's funny you mentioned that he ran a 4.4 at his pro day, but he never feels that fast watching him. Like he's good and he does everything that you could hope for out of a tight end. But I never watched him and thought, wow, that's a 4.4 guy. Like he creates mismatches like inside and outside. He's quicker than linebackers and guys trying to play him on the inside. He's obviously bigger than corners and guys trying to cover him on the outside. He gets off press, which is interesting to see because you oftentimes see tight ends get hung up a little bit at the line. He's got a really good swim move where he gets his arm through a defender. He almost like punches through and then pushes that defender out of the way. And I really enjoyed that. I think he is an absolute game changer in the red zone because not only is he big, not only is he physical, but he also runs really great routes and makes adjustments to throw. So you can throw the ball low and away where only Kyle Pitts can get it. and he'll make that play. And so all of those things I absolutely love about having in a tight end.
And on top of everything that you said, Zach, I think one of the most special pieces of him or of his game that doesn't get mentioned as much when we hear about Kyle Pitts is he has an absolutely absurd catch radius, right? Like if you're putting it anywhere in the vicinity, he's got a chance to make a play on the ball. And it's special to see because that's not even for big, tall players, whether it be wide receivers or tight ends. That's not common. Like, it's not common for people to be able to get the ball over their head, get the ball out into the left, low and away, and all these other different ways, and having to contort their body and do all these different things with adjustments. Kyle Pitts is special, as special of a tight end that I've had the privilege to be able to watch film on over these last few years that we've been doing this, Zach, and way less questions about his game, more questions regarding where exactly do we take him in rookie drafts. That's a whole nother story. But Kyle Pitts, what are some things about his game that could use some work?
So he's a better blocker than people give him credit for. I think that's been one of the knocks on him. He actually does block, but sometimes when he is blocking, he lets his center of gravity get a little high, which means that he can be pushed back, pushed off a defender, and they can get to the ball carrier. And I also think sometimes he will release his block too soon, and that's such a trap, especially with tight ends, because they're trying to oftentimes chip and then release. But if it's a run play, a chip and release is a little bit counterproductive. And so that's something that I noticed in his game, where the difference between his chip and release and the difference between his run blocking sometimes is minuscule. And the other thing that Kyle Pitts does is sometimes against zone, he gets lackadaisical and he kind of drifts. And I don't want that. I don't want you to drift. I want you to find that opening, and I want you to sit down and present a target. And so those are the negatives I have for Pitts. But man, he is the tight end one in this class. He is as good a tight end prospect as I have seen. Maybe since I've been doing this, I would say, but he's still a tight end prospect.
And with that, Zach, the question that I have been dying to ask you, as someone who is staunchly against tight ends in the first round, please tell me, is there any condition, any format, whether it be a league format of 2 tight ends starting, 2 points per reception for tight end premium type scoring? Is there any format where you'd consider Kyle Pitts in the first round of rookie drafts?
Yeah, so if you give me that tight end premium like Russ Fisher, so Dynasty Outhouse, where he's got that 1.75 per catch, anything there or higher, I'm not going to take him over the quarterbacks if it's super flex. So the quarterbacks are up above him. I'm still not going to take him over the top tier of wide receivers or the top tier of running backs. So there's another 5 guys. So now but I could see taking him at like 110, 111, 112 and being okay with that. And in a one quarterback league, so there you take out the quarterbacks, you're looking at like 107 or 108 potentially, which is, I hate the fact that I'm even thinking about that, because I hate taking tight ends early. But if you've got that premium, if you've got that 175 or better, then I can see taking Kyle Pitts. Now, if it's a regular league, if it's a standard, like tight ends are just like a receiver, hell no, because there are so many things that can go wrong. There's such a steep learning curve coming to the NFL for tight ends, even tight ends like Kyle Pitts, who are going to be primarily receivers. There is still a learning curve. You still have to become an offensive lineman and a wide receiver at the same time. And so if there's no tight end premium, even though it's Kyle Pitts, even though everybody says Kyle Pitts is going to change the world, OJ Howard and Evan Ingram and
David Njoku.
Yeah, Njoku and Hawkinson and they were all going to change the world too. And so you're better off taking shots later on tight ends than you are now, early in the first round.
Very good. Very good. Next up on our list, and again, going off of the good folks at DLF and these rankings here, they've got Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State. I can say that without stumbling over it 15 times, I think. Pat Freiermuth. Yes. Whew, that was tough. I don't know why. Anywho, 6'5", 258, continuing along the line of just absurdly athletic pass catchers out of Penn State. Their strength and conditioning coach should receive a lifetime supply of just Gatorade and all the good things in life that they should have to be able to stay fit, because he's doing work. Pat Freiermuth, we did see him get hurt. I believe it was it an ACL back in 2019? Or did he just – I think it was an ACL back in 2019. I can double check that here in a moment. But obviously, we saw a little bit of him in 2020. Talk to us about Pat Freiermuth and who a lot of people believe is at least somewhere near the stratosphere of Kyle Pitts to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not those people, but blocking, man, does he block. He gets into it, is an absolute road grader, and he blocks so well that they will even run Pat Freiermuth in motion to block for the blind side of the quarterback, which is something that's interesting. Oftentimes you'll see a tight end like run a wham where they're crossing behind the center and blocking on the opposite side of the line. But this is Freiermuth actually like pass blocking, being run in motion to basically be another tackle on the backside of the quarterback. And that's something that when you look at tight ends, I know blocking isn't sexy, but blocking keeps you on the field all 4 downs, and it keeps you on the field in the red zone. If you're on the field in the red zone, you have a chance to score touchdowns, which last time I checked, scores you points in fantasy football. He also runs better routes when he does not initiate contact at the line of scrimmage. So when he gets a free release, he's pretty good at running routes. When he doesn't, he gets baited into getting into a battle and pushing and banging and thrashing because, look, he's a big, strong, physical tight end who likes to stick his nose in it. Unfortunately, if he's going out for a pass, you don't want him to do that.
Yeah, Pat, I am also not those people, but another theme with the guys that we'll talk about this evening, lineup versatility. In line, slot, out wide, you'll see these guys line up all over these places. I do very much enjoy his ability to track the ball at all levels. He does have the ability to high point, even though sometimes he's not catching those passes. He is making the play to get both hands on the ball, so ideally that consistency could grow. Wild physical nature to him, which, like you just said, gets him in these patty cake fights in the midst of his route, and he gets to trying to box people out to some degree, and it's like, just run, just go do you. And I don't know if it's a case of him lacking elusivity at the top of his routes, which is why he gets in trouble with letting people get hands on him in these instances and allow himself to be rerouted. But he shows so many instances of being a lot stronger than having to deal with those things. So I guess it's the inconsistency there kind of messes with me, but I do love his ability to drive his feet to be able to run block as well as even stalk blocking when he is out wider from the formation. And he does have, I did see him exhibit some vision that allowed him to maximize run after catch once he's got the ball in his hand closer to the line of scrimmage. Not the most fleet of foot player, but again, a very good player, big player. And I think that he's someone that people are and have been waiting for to come out. That the hype for Freiermuth didn't necessarily reach Pitts levels, I don't think, but people really wanted him to come out even last year. And so now that he's finally out, people are very excited about Pat Freiermuth, the player, and we'll see what comes of where he lands and how he's leveraged and what people are going to be doing with him.
Yeah, they've already nicknamed him Baby Gronk, and people forget that Glenn is also a Gronkowski, so he could be a chip off the other Gronkowski. To me, like his route running isn't particularly dynamic, and like he will fail spectacularly both against man and zone again because he wants to get into contact. He wants to use his physicality, and he's actually quick enough to create separation. But he just doesn't, and it frustrates me because I think that there is potential for Freiermuth to be a good player. I just don't think that he's going to realize it. I think that he's going to be a very good NFL blocker, a very good tight end who is just going to disappoint you a little bit in terms of fantasy football.
There it is. Tight end number 3 that we'll be talking about this evening. One, Brevin Jordan, the 20-year-old out of Miami, Florida. And I did some research, Zach, a few weeks ago, and I posted it on the Twitter sphere. Did not get a ton of engagement, which was fine because I was still super proud of the work that I did, the very limited, very little time that it took to be able to research this. But I do want to read this, and I'm curious of your thoughts. You can kind of run right into Brevin Jordan and what you like about him. So since 2012, here's the group of tight ends listed below 6'4" with a top 5 tight end finish. Okay. Again, this is PPR weeks 1 to 16, listed below 6'4" with a top 5 position finish. Vernon Davis in 2013, who was just a beast, a different beast. Delaney Walker, 2015 through 2017, very special run for him. Jordan Reed in 2015, and Evan Ingram in 2017. 4 players encompassing 6 seasons who gave us that like difference maker type top 5 tight end finish. Brevin Jordan's pro day, 6'2.5", 247 pounds. Do with it what you will. Brevin Jordan, go.
I mean, did you include the 2021 Irv Smith? I've been told that he is going to be. Sorry.
No forecasting there, Zach. There was no forecasting. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I really like a lot of what I've seen from Brevin Jordan out of Miami. I think that as a pass catcher, as just an athlete, he is super smooth. He's very natural as a receiver and very natural and quick transitioning from that catch to a runner, which is not something you necessarily associate with the tight end position. I mean, normally you see that more out of running backs, but man, Brevin Jordan is, you have the ability to use him in some shorter routes, and he's got the ability to create after the catch because he transitions so quickly. I think he's got very good hands. He actually sets the edge pretty well as a blocker. And the other thing that I noticed about him, which is really funny, when you watch cornerbacks react to him, because he'll get to somebody and they don't expect him to be moving as fast as he is, and he just eats them up, and they're like, I used to play high school basketball with a guy who you'll watch him and he didn't look like he was moving. And he would get to you, and then he was gone, and you couldn't catch him. And it's a similar kind of phenomenon with Brevin Jordan.
The acceleration, I was just on the page I remember writing down. After the catch, acceleration, wow. Acceleration out wide, wow. And it's so interesting when you look at that, and then you run that up against, and this is why pro days will mess with you if you're not careful. The man runs a 4.69 and a 4.71 on at his pro day, and you're like, hold up. On film, I am watching him work people left and right. Something's not right here. But again, lineup versatile guy, inline slot, out wide. The footwork at the stem of his route is so much fun to be able to watch. He can make you look silly again at all levels. He's crafty in the route running, and it's similar to the guys at Alabama when it comes to navigating through the zone horizontally. So on deep overs, drags, posts, things of that nature, he's able to get by defenders without having them really reroute him and work him over as he's passing through. And that's one of the sneakier things about the game. He's really slithery in that fashion. His effort is most certainly there when it comes to the blocking, while the hand placements really poor oftentimes with getting out wide and kind of hugging guys and not necessarily always moving defenders when in line. He does get a lot of stalemates, which again is a win for the offense when the defender's obviously not going to be getting through the line there. But the acceleration is the thing that is as special of a talent or trait for him as anything, and I'm super excited to see how that continues to move forward, how NFL offenses can incorporate him, because if he's plugged into the right place, we could see another name on that list of those tight ends under 6'4" who give you really special seasons. But again, we're drooling all over the place right now with Brevin Jordan. Let me clean myself up. I've got slobber everywhere. This place is a mess. Zach, take us through Brevin Jordan, some of his shortcomings in his game that you've seen on film.
I think sometimes if a defender gets kind of into him and gets hands on him, he'll struggle to separate from man-to-man defense. I saw several games where he had concentration drops where, the ball would be on him, the ball would be on his hands, and it would go right through because he's getting ready to turn and make that spectacular 4.87 dash to the end zone, that lightning speed. And also he's really fast off to block. Like, that was one of the things that I loved about him, especially in the red zone, because you need that explosion off the line. You need to be able to set that edge quickly, but sometimes he gets too quick and he'll get out and initiate the block, release the block before the running back has even gotten there. And so, it's like you may as well not have even, blocked in the first place. There's a lot I really like about Brevin Jordan. And to me, he's a lot closer to Kyle Pitts than people want to admit. And that's why, again, I think that taking that first round tight end can hamstring you when you've got somebody like Brevin Jordan that you could get in the second round or potentially the early third round, who I think his upside is close to Kyle Pitts, and the downside is he's a tight end, because they're all tight ends and they all have that downside. So if you're not spending as much to get nearly the same upside, yeah, why not?
Very good, very good. I'm just trying to digest that last part that you put that you just said regarding you feel like his ceiling is close to Kyle Pitts.
I don't think it's as far as people want it. Like, look, I know Kyle Pitts is generational, but like a generational tight end is probably not going to happen. So, okay, so Kyle Pitts is a top 5 tight end. I don't think a top 5 tight end is out of the realm for Brevin Jordan. I think he's that good offensively, especially with his ability to make plays post catch. I think he's a really good tight end. And again, you're not spending the capital of a first round pick to get him. And so those two kind of variables are what I'm looking at.
Very good. Last, certainly not least, one Hunter Long out of Boston College. And with Hunter Long, it's almost like, hey, we have a late addition to the Thunderdome. We have a new challenger. Uh, at his Boston College Pro Day, measures in 6'5", 254 pounds. Okay, we can get with that. 82-inch wingspan. Yep, runs a 4.65. Okay, I like what's going on here, Hunter Long. Productive player at Boston College. Again, an offense that is wildly inept in so many ways. So it's hard to really gauge the talent of someone when their traits and their talents and their efforts aren't necessarily being rewarded on a snap-to-snap basis. But I think there's a lot of good things or a lot of things to like about Hunter Long. What are your thoughts there, Zach?
So do you follow Kent Lee Platt, who's at Math Bomb?
Math Bomb, yeah.
Yeah, so he does the RAS, the relative athletic score, and one of his recent tweets was about Pro Bowl players and their relative athletic scores. And for quarterbacks and quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers, the RAS score was, it was nice to see, but it wasn't that much. The score goes from 0 to 10, and quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers, the RAS score, if they were above like 6.5, you're good. You could be a Pro Bowl player. 7 was nice. The tight ends really made me pause. And then it made sense because I went back to Kyle's cheat sheet, and I went back to scouting and drafting later round tight ends with athletic profiles. And the RAS of Pro Bowl tight ends was above 8. Okay. And Hunter Long, his RAS, his relative athletic score is 8.61 out of a possible 10. That makes him in the top 15% athletically of all tight ends to come out since 1987. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like that's a thing. You couple that with the fact that at BC this past year, he had 22% of all of their receiving yards. He had 24% of all of their receptions out of the tight end position. And all of a sudden, Hunter Long is a really interesting prospect. I mean, he's a good blocker. He can set the edge. He's a big guy. He's 6'5", 250. Like he can do all the things that you want to see out of a tight end, but he can also chip and release. He can also go over the middle. I mean, there are just a lot of things. And I think people are sleeping a little bit on Hunter Long. I was following along with an industry mock that was going on Twitter, and Doug Eddy of Dynasty Happy Hour picked Hunter Long in the 4th round. He said, well, I don't know if this is a great pick, but I'm going to take him because I like BC. And I was like, Doug, that was sharper than you think, because athleticism matters more at the tight end position than any other. And Hunter Long is a plus athlete that you can get late.
Man, that was a lot of good stuff there. And it's going to be fun to see with Hunter Long. The obviously we talk about the draft capital and how that is wildly important and how these guys get plugged in. But Hunter Long, stop me if you've heard this before regarding white players, sneaky athletic.
He's a gym rat.
I mean, that motor of his never stops. He is a very smooth mover. I really enjoy just watching him kind of glide. He's got this long stride, and I think that he surprises people on film in the few games that I was able to see, because he's eating up a little bit more cushion than I think that these linebackers and safeties are really ready for. And it shows time and again where he's on top of people. And he, again, similar to Brevin Jordan, not quite to the level I think of Brevin Jordan, but he does have a certain slipperiness about him where a lot of folks aren't necessarily destroying him by getting hands on him. And I really like that about his game. He's got the swim move release that he leverages often, and being 6'5", you can get away with that. A lot of times, if you're someone who's shorter, or even defensive linemen who are shorter, like a lot of times a swim move exposing all that rib meat to these offensive linemen and defensive linemen is not necessarily the greatest thing to do. But probably my favorite thing about his game wasn't even fantasy relevant. It was his pass sets. Him pass blocking was so much fun to watch, just because people are just like, no, you're not getting close. You're not getting anywhere close to my quarterback. I do love this ability to catch the ball away from his body. I do like his hands. In traffic is one thing, though. I did see a lot of issues in traffic, man. He's getting hit. The ball's kind of flying all over the place. In those instances, he's letting the ball into his body a little more than one would hope. But all in all, Hunter Long, a pretty interesting player. What are some of your drawbacks?
Yeah, we saw the exact same thing in traffic. He struggles when the ball and the defenders are kind of all arriving at the same time. He's not necessarily strong in the catch point, and I think you're right. Letting the ball travel in, I think he almost tries to use his elbows to hold off defenders, which gives him alligator arms, which lets the ball travel in, which conversely lets the defenders get in closer. Like, it's this, like, the thought is there, but in practice it's not great. And so that's something that you need to clean up. But the other part of it is, man, his quarterback was not very good. He's putting him in bad situations in traffic, which, so you're having to, when you get a situation like that, you're having to like make up for it. And there were also several times where Hunter Long made the Gronk route where he goes out and like looks like he's going to run a slant and then hits that seam. It's like a little slant and go that Gronk always used to run with the Patriots, and his quarterback just doesn't wait. He's gone on his progression. He's like, no, I'm going to get rid of it. Like, check it down, like, get out of here. and man, I really think Hunter Long has a chance to be a lot of fun at the next level, just based on everything he does and my experience going after tight ends. And I'm going to give you a bonus tight end, because I'm sitting here just scrolling through Kent Lee Platt's math bomb, scrolling through his RAS scores, and there is a kid out of Kansas State named Briley Moore, whose RAS is 9.02. He is the 90th ranked athletically tight end since 1987. He is 90 out of 912. So in case you're in the 5th round and you're in a tight end premium, Briley Moore, just soak him up, have fun.
There you have it. Tight end film grade orders, Zach. We got to get them in. I'll go first this time. We'll save your grand reveal real quick. But when it comes to the tight ends, I've got a shout out to our good friend, Dogleg Brewer, Kyle LaPointe, over at the Dynasty Self-Help. I've got Kyle Pitts at tight end 1, and it's not even close. It's not even close. Shout out to you, Kyle. But yeah, Kyle Pitts at number 1. I've got Brevin Jordan at number 2. Number 3 was really close for me, Zach. I have, from a film grade perspective, I have Freiermuth just ahead of Hunter Long, and it is close. I am very close to having Freiermuth at number 4 and being unashamed about it. But that's how I have those guys ranked out with film grades. Where do you stand?
I tell you what, I'll live that life, because I've got Kyle Pitts at 1. I've got Brevin Jordan at 2. I've got Hunter Long at 3, I will be unapologetic about it. And then baby Glenn Gronkowski at 4, Pat Freiermuth. I hope Matt Foreman isn't listening to this, or Brian Harr. They'll be so mad. The Penn State guys will be coming out of the woodworks.
They're going to hear you, and they'll have their pitchforks ready and all of their Nittany Lion familia with them in tow. What a fun night, Zach. It's always a pleasure to be able to do this. Thank you for allowing me to join you yet again as we continue to walk forward. And I'm excited for as we continue. We got a few weeks left before the draft comes, so we still got our catch-alls to be able to get into. We've got some more grades to dig into and some more things to do. So I'm glad that we can just continue this journey and have fun as we continue to move forward.
Yeah, there's no allowing you to be here, man. I am so happy that you're here. I would beg and plead, like, this is so much fun, and you do such a fantastic job hosting everywhere you go that it's an absolute blast. It's a thrill for me to be able to record with you, to be able to dig into film with you, because not only are you a great host, but your film perspective makes me better, and it makes everybody listening to us better. So, man, like I said, thank you for being here. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for being just family. And speaking of family, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the rest of the DFPN at work, the only at work in town. And not only that, but a great fantasy football family for us. Everybody in the network has gotten us through some pretty rough go. So, like, Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, Stephen Marcus, big shout out to the Fantasy Football Funhouse guys. Matt Foreman at Fat Mormon, again, is kind of backed off a little bit. He's got a very young son, and we're really happy for him. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, and Kyle Lebrecht, as always. And you can't put him least. I put him last because he does the best work for us. But Trader Joe at FF Trader Joe, if you see anything on Twitter come out of basically any of our accounts, but especially the DFPN account, anything that is smart, anything that is funny, anything that is even remotely brilliant, it's Trader Joe. He does some great work. And so we appreciate you joining us on the network. Appreciate you joining us for this show. I'll throw it back to J Mike. He can run his handle off, and then we'll be out of here.
It's your boy J Mike at J Mike Check,
and I am at Tacit Assassin 13. Thank you for listening. This has been the Dynasty Dummies. Peace.